Check 1, 2. Should be coming through with a brew. Good evening, people. Welcome to the Brews at 10 on my left eye. How are you doing tonight? How are you brewing? Yes, the tea-based puns are still strong. As always, I'm your host Lefty. Welcome to everybody, whether you're watching live or back on a replay. Davinia, great to see you in the chat, and Red F too. We'll be getting through the week with ease. Thanks for joining me. Well, midway-ish. It is, of course, PMQ's regular feature on my left eye. A channel all about politics and society from a left-wing point of view. And I'm going to be keeping my left eye on what's been happening in the House of Commons today. Either side of that, a look at a few stories and stuff. Got some good uplifting content as well, which I'll start off with shortly. So some things to be cheerful about, not just some things to be fearful about. Just like what we like to see. A bit more positivity within the community. Yes, people, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, don't forget to feel free to liberally shower the chat with tea-based puns, and if you're not subscribed, please do so. You can share your thoughts and comments, whether they are based around hot, tasty beverages or not. And Kit and Super Tiny joining us in the chat too. Welcome. It's great to see our little community -T growing and growing, so thanks a lot for people. I know quite a lot of you in the chat as well have celebrated 3 months memberships, 6 months memberships, that sort of thing. It's been wonderful. Thank you very much for your support. Whether you're new or a regular visitor to the channel, or the Brews at 10, or the Brew Crew, I believe it's been referred to once or twice. Please do help to support the channel by hitting a thumbs up button, give us a like. Knock us about your social media as well, please do. And right on cue, Kit comes in with the celebration 5 months membership. Thank you very much for that, Kit. Solidari-Tea, raising a cup as we speak. Okay, no worries, Super Tiny, if your hands are otherwise occupied. And celebrating memberships is just one of the benefits of becoming a member on the channel. Always like to kick off proceedings with thanks and gratitude to all of the current members whose names you can see before you. Thank you very much, everybody. It's your support that's helped the channel reach milestones recently, such as passing 3,000 subscribers, which I'm extremely grateful for. Well done, Davinia. Very quick on the button there, on the the like button. I did mention social media a moment ago. You can give us a follow on Twitter, Mastodon and Blue Sky as well, a new addition to the, well, it's now a trio, a trinity of social media accounts. So if it's Twitter or Blue Sky, then it's My Left Eye UK. If it's Mastodon, it's just My Left Eye. You don't have to put the UK in. I was quick enough there to get the channel name without having to put UK on the end. Ah, you're tidying, Super Tiny. It's because the place is dirty. Wonderful, wonderful. Like I just mentioned, there's hopefully something to keep our spirits up as we get into the stream shortly. Well, there's been lots of things going on, even just this week, that have got people's hackles up, and I will be keeping up to speed with those situations. The WASPI women being a very predominant one in the last couple of days. Farage off to America again to have a chat, a monetary-based chat with Elon Musk, of course, who's looking to get some serious investments into the far right of British politics, which is hopefully something which can be impeded. Mobius and Hickey join us too. Wonderful to see you. Solidari-Tea. Brothers, sisters, they, thems, ladies and gentlemen, people from the UK and the wider world. We do have international viewers as well, if you're on My Left Eye. It's not all just about UK politics. Well, I did mention some interminglings at the moment in current affairs with the United States. Musk, of course, being somewhat influential in Trump's recent successful campaign. He's got lots of money to throw around at the moment before stock could potentially tumble quite dramatically and suddenly. Who knows? That's just joking speculation, by the way. This is not serious financial advice. You never know when you excuse me, you never know when you might have to clarify these things. Floor Snake, wonderful to see you too. And thanks for throwing up the watermelons as well. And speaking of the wider world, we do also like to keep up to speed with events in the Middle East. So that's something else we'll be touching on later in the stream. The bulk, of course, the main focus of the show will be PMQs. You'll always get my first time reaction to that as well. Seen in a couple of thumbnails that the subject of WASPI women, that is the decision not even to meet the Ombudsman's requirements and just to flat out reject the idea of any sort of compensation for what's estimated to be around 3.5 million UK pensioners. Which brings me magically into a segue about the poll. Oh yes, there's lots packed into the live stream tonight. There's a poll as well. So what are your thoughts at the moment? Will the outrage, the outcry about this decision eventually lead to a parliamentary vote on WASPI compensation. Wasn't exactly sure how to phrase that question, by the way. I know some people would feel that if it did get to Parliament, because of the majority that Labour have at the moment, it could be sort of a moot point. I do think the campaign for compensation should carry on. I would like to see a parliamentary vote myself, I guess. Not sure whether there will be, or if there is, what the outcome of it might be, so that's what led to me taking quite a while to figure out what question to ask specifically, so the likelihood, I guess, that is it, the likelihood of there being a parliamentary vote. In this wonderful system that we have here in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Andy Carter, FSM, is the dog, are also with us. Good evening to you, thanks for joining us in the chat. Right, people. Let's get started. There are a few things to get into. We'll start with some things to feel a bit more uplifted about before we go through the pantomime. I guess it's the season for it. Well, it is here in the UK at least. So starting off, we're going to go to Noreen Skinner. And if you've not caught her latest video, regular viewers of the channel, very good. Someone I've featured quite a few times before. Wonderful impersonator. This one is Rachel Reeves. Magnificent, magnificent. Oh. Apologies. Right. So the voice and the mannerisms and everything are fantastic. Check this out, people.
Hello and welcome to Pet Peeves with Rachel Reeves. This week I'm mainly peeved with the general public. Oh, will I lose my job? Will there be tax rises? I don't know. I'm not qualified to answer that. I'm from a customer services background. I don't know how to deal with people. Oh, what's that, madam? Go away. You can go into the peeve bin. Secondly, I'm peeved with dogs, cats, guinea pigs, fluffy rabbits, slow lorises, or any animal deemed to be cute. What a waste of space, am I right? Thirdly, I'm peeved with my colleagues. Oh, can you sort these accounts, Rachel? Can you do that, Rachel? Well, no, because I don't know how to. But I do know that you can't claim for that Brazilian, Angela. You can all go in the peeve bin.
It's got the way that she tries to do the smile as well. Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant, and the voice is so spot on. Yeah. Just interrupted to say she actually claims to, know a lot about economics and stuff, having done that for banks. It turns out that she was just in customer services or something. She's lied about that. There's probably quite a few other untruths on a CV as well. Who knows? Yeah. Oh, this is great. There's more. There's more. This is wonderful.
Lastly, I'm peeved with Keir Starmer. His voice is so nasal and depressing and his delivery is boring. Don't you think? Interaction time. What are your pet peeves? Question mark. The good news this week is that I've been compared to Margaret Thatcher. That makes me happy. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Great. Wonderful stuff. Yeah, Noreen Skinner Comedy, give her a follow on there. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Noreen Skinner. She does a great range as well. Alter egos, as it were. Twists on the name. Andreva is another one I've featured recently. Liv Struss is another famous one as well. Great comedian, great impersonator. Go check it out. That grin, that attempt at a smile, we'll probably see that a few times in PMQs as well. It might trigger some laughter in inappropriate places. Who knows? We'll find out. Okay, what's up next? Okay. Doc Davies and Wolf Pet 2, great to see you again. Hope you've been well. Just getting into some uplifting comedy stuff, something to put a smile on our faces before we get into the pantomime of PMQs. Oh yes it is. I assume we're going to see Labour getting absolutely roasted for yesterday's decision as well. It's an open goal. Even Kemi Badenoch couldn't mess this one up, right? Well, we'll see. But before we do, something else to be cheerful about. The latest from Led by Donkeys. Brilliant stunts. They do things with projections and video vans. Speaking the truth to power. They do like to get very direct with it. I mean, projected things onto the Houses of Parliament before, things like this. This time around, they took a visit to the coast, to Clacton-on-Sea, which happens to be the seat of one Nigel Farage, assuming they didn't bump into him, of course, he's hardly ever there. In fact, at the time, he was probably in America doing those aforementioned talks with the Reform PLC financiers and supposed, on paper, world's richest man, Elon Musk. And this was brilliant, so they sort of added to the Clacton's Christmas decorations that were up, and it got the attention of a few passers-by. Pertaining to the Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, Mr. Shytalk himself. What was it I called him in the last video? Porcelain mouth piece or something like that. Oh, do check that out, by the way. That came public early this morning. It was available in the wee small hours for members only as well, but it's fully public now, if you've not checked that one out, about the WASPI women. So this is the latest from Led by Donkeys. I'm sure you know the name. I've kept the live stream background music on just because it does have what will undoubtedly be a copyright infringement. Song, very famous, festive song by Wizard. So I'm sure you'll know the one I'm referring to there. For anyone who's up on the music trivia. So I definitely won't risk trying to get away with that one. I have had some restrictions lately. Let's just see that again. £301,529 he's made outside of his work as an MP, which technically he still does. He's never at surgeries, he's never in the constituency. And normally he loves a good old coast. Does Farage, doesn't he? You normally can't get him away from them. Only for what's the word I'm looking for? Photo ops. Only for photo ops with a press team to point out yet again at nothing. He's always, you can see it's happening right now down there. It's like there's nothing going on. So that £301, £1,000, 529. With these kind of things, it's always, you know, nice to see the initial public reaction that something's out of the ordinary. Hang on, this isn't telling me to buy crap. This is very unorthodox. Merry Griftmas, of course. Well done, led by donkeys. Well done. Always very good to see their stunts. Public stunts. Alright, let's have a quick look in the chat before we dive into a few other bits and pieces. Don't worry, you've not missed PMQs if you're just joining us. That's yet to come. It's going to be sandwiched in between just keeping up with a couple of issues and some light-hearted stuff. Pantomime MQs, yeah. Could be. Well, this is the last one before Christmas Day, obviously. Yeah, grift aid. Donate and get nothing. Right, let's move on. Just one or two other things before PMQs. I'm sure, you know, it's not a very controversial prediction, I would say, to estimate that this WASPI issue is going to come up during PMQs. But before we get into the back and forth there, just want to go through some of the media appearances over this, and there's been some real wow. Backtracking, not exactly Labour's strong point at the moment, especially with such a clear hypocrisy as this is. I've pointed out that in my last video. A lot of other people have recently as well. Rachel Reeves, Liz Kendall herself, Keir Starmer, plenty of people. Have completely changed their minds on this and completely insulted millions of pensioners. Also, this is no doubt going to affect polling and things like this. No wonder Starmer wants to cancel council elections in quite a lot of seats, postpone them to 2026 or 2027. He can forget it as far as pensioners are concerned now. It's bad enough with the winter fuel payments, and now this. I don't think he's got a leg to stand on when he sends canvassers to the door of retirees at the upcoming local or general elections down the road in 2029. And I will be taking a look at some of those recent polls as well. But first of all, Syed Morandi had to answer for yesterday's decision and didn't do a great job of it.
Any threat? Iran has a high degree...
Apologies. It's Rashana Ali, who was on Sky News. Kay Burley was having none of it. Was having none of it. So let's take a look. Well, let's see what's happening. Apologies for the mix-up there.
Back in 2019, your party promised a £58 billion package of compensation for these women. Why has the position changed so much from 58 billion to zip?
Well, if you look at the Ombudsman's report, it's very clear.
And the most extreme estimate was 10.5 billion. So they'd previously promised 5 times the amount it actually would have cost. I think the lowest estimate made was somewhere around the 3.5-4 billion mark, somewhere between that and 10.5 billion. You know, they can't even come through on a fraction of the previous promise. They've just thrown it out the window altogether.
In terms of the fact that 9 out of 10 women would not have made a difference in terms of the letters being received, and the focus is on how we use public money, and we don't believe that £10 billion, up to £10 billion in terms of compensation, would be a fair and proportionate response.
And as I
say, our focus is in tackling the cost of living crisis, improving living conditions.
They move straight on to the pre-prepared statement. Of course, they think everything's an opportunity for them to self-grandize and just put out some robotic party political broadcast. And Wolfpet, I dare say you won't be alone in raiding the cupboards for rotten fruit and eggs in case any Labour canvassers come and knocking your way. They certainly would get an earful from me if that happened as well.
Everybody,
that includes WASPI pensioners and WASPI women,
yeah.
And the investment we're putting in the NHS,
let me look at these
in
pictures.
the public services,
as well
as the support, border support to fix the foundations, is about helping pensioners.
Right, can I ask you a question? Liz Kendall has been pictured with WASPI campaign promising to deliver a fair solution, as has...
The state pension is still the lowest in Europe as well, by the way. Very pathetic, very poor effort there for them to try and cover the tracks by saying that they're helping out pensioners in other ways, but that simply isn't the case either. Whether it's with funding for the NHS or anything else that they're imagining would replace this absolute insult to retirees.
Rachel Reeves, as has Keir Starmer. Can you understand why people don't believe a word you say?
Well, look, I go back to the point about the lessons that need to be learnt and the fact that this government has apologised for that delay, but we've got to focus on the issues at hand in terms of improving the living standards of pensioners, and that's why the triple lock is critical. That's £30 billion of investment. People will be £1,400 better off in this Parliament. And this government is committed to improving
Let me give you this. Back in 2022, the now Prime Minister said, this is a real injustice. That's why there's been a big campaign about it. It's not just that the age has changed to 67. All your working life, you've got in mind the date on which you can retire and get your pension. And just as you get towards it, the goalposts are moved and you don't get it. And
that's the thing. It's about the massive hypocrisy. And inflation is up. Energy bills are up. And, well, Davinia just pointed out one example in the chat there. £221. If you live in London, I guess that's almost enough to cover, you know, what you might be paying towards Thames Water. Everything's going up. Labour are no good for pensioners. We know that much, and now they've put the final nail in the coffin as far as appealing to pensioners for votes. With this, and it's just rank hypocrisy. That's the main thing. And now they're trying to lie to us even further. But, oh no, it wouldn't have hardly affected any of them, this sort of thing. It's a nonsense.
That is a real injustice. That's what he said 2 years ago.
Yeah, and the Ombudsman has reported, and we accept the findings in relation to maladministration. And
the Ombudsman said they should get at least some...
They're not even going to give them the Ombudsman's recommendation, which was a lot lower than what campaigners were calling for, of course, but it was at least something. And they just said, oh, you know, forget it. It'll hardly affect any of you. It's not as though some people lost their houses over this. Some people didn't get to have one day of retirement because they stayed in work and have sadly passed away. And every time you approach that line where you think you're going to be retiring, kicking back, it just gets further and further away. And that's a sentiment that apparently Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, Liz Kendall, Chris Bryant's another one of them. He's been quiet about the whole thing recently. That's what they used to campaign for, but no. No. And also at the same time, they've got the absolute gall to try and say that they're going to fix the broken trust in politics. Yeah. That, my friends, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, they're thems, is gaslighting. They know it. They know that we know it's a lie. Or just as it says on the meme that I used in the opening part of the live stream. Shout out to Socialist Nan as well for that. Let's just bring that back up for a sec. He's lying, he knows he lies, and knowing that we and his party know he's lying. And still lying. And not giving a shit. Selling pork tea pies. Right. Certainly is. And it's done so openly as well that, like I've mentioned in recent videos and streams, this has had a massive effect on polling. And I've got a couple of other examples here. One of them... Oh, well, wait till you see these. No spoilers, no spoilers. Wondergut, thanks for joining us in the chat. Excellent point there. Yep, some of them started their retirement before they found out, and it's not just that easy to find a new job straight away. Exactly, some of them will be going into retirement from lengthy careers. I've spoken to a few people who've been affected by this since yesterday, and I've seen a lot of public outcry on social media as well about it in the last 48 hours. But the overriding view is that all of them got ripped off in one way or another. They lost money out on the pensions, and I've heard examples of tens of thousands of pounds. I said earlier, people lost their houses because of this. If you've had a 40-year career and then come out of that, and then you can't just quickly reverse it and go back to whatever position you used to have, however far up you were in whatever position in whatever industry. No doubt it's quite likely that that would have been filled. Yeah, wonderful to see you, as always, Wonderguts. Solidari-Tea. Now then, where was I? We were going to look at a couple of polls. We'll dive into PMQs straight after this. A bit to get through this evening. So, I'll do this one first. I'm going to do this one first. This is Keith's very seats himself. I've had my left eye on this in the run-up to the general election, of course, if regular viewers remember the content and videos there, where he was actually elected, but the numbers show that year on year they dwindled in terms of numbers of votes. Suffice to say that post-Corbyn, people haven't been very impressed with him. And there was a challenge from Andrew Feinstein in the run-up to the last election. So the latest on that, now look at this, a 14.4 drop down to 35%. Bearing in mind, like I said, at the last election, the one this year, he got the least amount of votes that he ever has in the, is it 4 or 5 times he's stood in the seat. I think it's 4. Going back to 2015. I'm getting sidetracked here, but Andrew Feinstein is gaining ground. Unfortunately, so are Reform. So are polling Deputy Prime Minister's seat, Ashton-under-Lyne, Angela Rayner, looking likely to get beaten by Reform. But it's no wonder. It's hard to see who Keir Starmer's currently trying to appeal to, which demographic, because he's losing popularity quicker than any previous Prime Minister going back to the 1970s. And he's sure that he's not going to be implementing change. It's more of the same. He's lying to us, he's doing U-turns, and this is all being reflected here. After just 5 months, he's already pissed off pretty much every demographic outside of the top 1% and Israel lobbyists that you can think of. You just had a power cut. Missed some. Oh no. Sorry to hear that, Kit. He is getting in some dangerous territory, Andy. Quite right there. Thanks for the fist in the air, Wondergutter. Now then, the Greens are also up. Good to see. But the biggest gain, worryingly, looks to be coming from Reform. I'm hoping that Andrew Feinstein, who's an independent, of course, saying a lot about Gaza as well in his 24 campaign. So I'm hoping he can gain traction. Doesn't look good for Keith. But if that looks bad for Labour, then check this one out. This is Wes Streeting's seat and it looks as though he's set to be silenced, or should we say, shut up.
But shut up, Wesley.
And look at that, Liam Mohammed, who narrowly, very narrowly, by 500 votes, just missed out last time, has gained only a small amount, admittedly, 0.6, but enough to gain a massive lead in the poll, because he's down by 9.4%. Is Wesley. Oh, Wesley, Wesley, Wesley. Again, Green's up slightly. Reform, again, worryingly making the most gains, but she did run a wonderful campaign, did Liam Mohammed. Just hit the bar almost within 1,000 votes of a London seat, Ilford North. So I'll be keeping my left eye on that one, but I do think we should keep a lookout for Wesley in this week's PMQs as well. We'll see if he's sweating. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Don't normally do this kind of tech stuff while I'm live on a... I'm going to bring this poll up every time I see his face. Or in fact, no, I'll just do the shut up Wesley's. Yeah, I'll go for that. Need to get cracking on with things, so... What do you think about that, people? If you do live in Ilford North, please do get behind Liam Mohammed. Just back to the other poll very quickly, and then we will get started with PMQs. Someone pointed out that maybe in this particular one, they suggested, this isn't my suggestion, because I do encourage voting for independent candidates as well as the Greens and grassroots socialist parties, of course, Solidari-Tea. But should the Greens duck out of this seat, perhaps that could just give Feinstein the edge to get past Keir Starmer. This is the Prime Minister we're talking about. His seat, Holborn and St Pancras. Not Pancreas, as I once famously misspelled in a... Was it a video or a picture I used to use? Anyway. So I don't know what you think about that, but it was suggested. Obviously, according to this, you can't go off the exact numbers in terms of accuracy, but 12% would give Feinstein just about a fighting chance. He'd be neck and neck with him, practically. So, yeah, 34%, 35%. It'd just take another little nudge to unseat Keith. Like I'm saying, that's not my suggestion. That's just something that I saw being suggested. Right, yes, charge your glasses, be it with more tea or coffee. Morbius, you think the Greens should endorse Feinstein? And do you think it's a typo and the Lib Dems are on 2%? Don't know, but we'll see. Right. Let's have a look. Where's the... what? Just see which one you're referring to now. Oh yeah, yeah. At the bottom. The Greens and Lib Dem are both on 5%, but the Greens is bigger than... well, it could be a typo. If so, judging, you know, it looks like Lib Dem would be on about 3% there. Just don't know. Not sure about that. You'd have to ask Stats for Lefties. It's Stats for Lefties, not which is pluralised, not Stats for Lefty. Without any further delay, let's get into PMQs before it gets too late. Right, this is already in queued up, people. Let's get cracking. Of course, we do have the game, of course. Deliver versus Black Hole. Could be quite a good one for Black Hole, with them being on the back foot over this WASPI women issue. So I want to see a good fight tonight as well. I want to see a high-scoring, entertaining PMQs. Let's just bring up the paraphernalia. It was a 2-1 win to Postman Twat last week, quite low scoring, so let's have a bit more action this week. I think we've got the right environment, the right conditions for that sort of thing this week. Alright, off you go, Lindsay.
That completes questions. We now come to Prime Minister's questions. Chris Hinchliffe.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday I met the brave men and women serving on HMS Iron Duke.
Sorry about the
and the troops
here,
serving
people.
in Operation Cabaret in Estonia.
I'm working on it.
This Christmas, as every Christmas, members of our armed forces will be serving overseas, working day and night to protect Britain's national security. And I know that the whole House will join me in sending our deepest thanks to them, to our emergency services and everyone working to keep the country
Right, I'm just going to
safe
have a quick think
over
here.
the
Sorry about
festive
this.
period. Mr. Speaker,
I might have to reduce the quality slightly.
may I also take this
Only
opportunity
slightly.
at the end of the year to thank you and the House staff for all your hard
That's
work this
Rachel
year.
Reid with a grin.
And can I wish everyone across the House a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Right, let's
President,
click on this buffer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks. In 2021, Kerry and Francis Menai Davis, who live in my constituency of North East Hertfordshire and are in the gallery here today, tragically lost their son Hugh at the age of just 6 to a rare form of cancer. Now they are courageously campaigning to ensure that every parent who must leave work to
Right, one sec.
look after a sick child in hospital gets the financial...
That's going to be intolerable. One moment. Bear with, folks. I've got an alternative source. I'll just cue that up one sec. Dive back in where we left off. Nearly there, people. Just got to get through the ads in it. Sorry about the delay. No. Should be landing. It's queued up. That's good enough for jazz. Let's go with that. One sec. We have it now. Security. Right. There he is.
I'm working to keep the country safe over the festive period. Mr. Speaker, may I also take this opportunity at the end of the year to thank you and the House staff for all your hard work this year. And can I wish everyone across the House a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Presently.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks. In 2021, Kerry and Francis Menai-Davis, who live in my constituency of North East Hertfordshire and are in the gallery here today, tragically lost their son Hugh at the age of just 6 to a rare form of cancer. Now they are courageously campaigning to ensure that every parent who must leave work to look after a sick child in hospital gets the financial support that they need from day one. Will the Prime Minister meet with them and me to discuss implementing Hugh's law and giving their son a legacy that improves the lives of families at the most difficult time imaginable?
Mr. Speaker, can I pay tribute to Kerry and Francis? It is a heartbreaking case and commend them for their campaign on behalf of other families. I know the Minister for Social Security and Disability met the family yesterday But no parent should endure losing
Social
their child
Security
to cancer, particularly at such a young age. We are investing £1.5 billion for new surgical hubs and scanners, £70 million for new radiotherapy machines, and we will set out our next steps
shut up, Wesley.
on the Children and Young People Cancer Task Force shortly.
Didn't have to wait long for that one.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, can I send my warmest wishes to our armed forces at home and overseas, to the emergency services and everyone who will be working over Christmas. And can I wish you, Mr.
thanks
Speaker,
for fighting
the
out
House staff
illegal
and all
wars
members
all
of this
over
House
the world
a
and
very
supporting
Merry Christmas.
despotic
Mr.
fascists.
Speaker, for years, the Prime Minister and his cabinet played politics with the WASPI women. The Deputy Prime Minister said Conservatives were stealing their pensions. She promised to compensate them in full. Another broken promise. Now they admit we were right all along. But let's ask about another group of pensioners whose trust... Let's ask about another group of pensioners.
Even these bastards have got you banged to rights over
Since
this one.
the Chancellor cut winter fuel payments, how many extra people have applied for pension credit?
Mr. Speaker, the number one job of this government was to put the finances back in order after the last government lost control. They left a £22 billion black hole and we had to take tough choices. We made sure the most vulnerable pensioners do get the winter fuel payment, and we have been encouraging and driving up eligibility for pension credit. So saying up to their entitlement, and she should join that campaign. But, Mr. Speaker, here's the difference. Because we've stabilised the economy, we can commit to the triple lock. That means that next April, pensioners get another £470. But here's the difference, because 2 weeks ago, the Shadow Chancellor said the triple lock is unsustainable. Their position, so pensioners would lose out under the Tories yet again.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't answer the question because he doesn't know the answer. There are 850,000 eligible pensioners not claiming pension credit. If they sign up, that will cost the Treasury £2.3 billion, wiping out the savings that the Chancellor claimed she would make. Before the election, his Chief Secretary told the public they had no plans to cut winter fuel. But they did have plans, didn't they? Age UK say cutting the winter fuel payment with very little notice will potentially jeopardise the health and finances of millions of older people. Does he agree with Age UK that this is the last thing both pensioners and the NHS need?
Mr. Speaker, we've been driving up with a campaign for pension credit. It is important that everybody who's entitled to it claims that pension credit. And she shouldn't claim as some great victory the record of their...
I think he meant ramping up, not driving. I don't know. Yeah, we're paying these clowns 600 of them. They're on 80 grand a year at least.
She hasn't answered the question. Her Shadow Chancellor says the triple lock is unsustainable. So she needs to explain how pensioners will be worse off under a Tory government.
It is Prime Minister's question.
Mr. Speaker, we protected the triple lock during all our time in government. Meanwhile, energy bills are increasing, despite his promise to cut them by £300. In Scotland, his party leader wants to restore the winter fuel payments. Across England, councils are scrabbling together funds for struggling pensioners.
Liars and hypocrites, mocking liars and hypocrites. Welcome to the United Kingdom. Join the queue and take an umbrella.
Policy. Did the Chancellor consider the impact on councils and on the NHS, or does she just not know what she's doing?
The Household Support Fund was set out in the budget. She knows that. We're pushing up pension credit. But she now says they are committed to the triple lock. Her Shadow Chancellor says they're not, that it's unsustainable. Maybe over a sandwich or a steak they could sort it out and come back and tell us what their policy actually is.
It's rank hypocrisy, and they've got nothing to offer in terms of substitution for pensioners. That's the case. However many jokes he wants to make about how Cammy Bedinock thinks you're tasting sandwiches or whether you like them or not for your dinner. That's what we call lunch here in Manchester, but it's not going to cover it, Keith.
It could actually cost us all more. And that's not the only policy which is making things worse. The Chancellor's budget is a body blow to family businesses and also charities. Marie Curie have warned that Labour's budget will cost them nearly £3 million a year. This is a cancer charity saying they have no option but to reduce services. Did the Chancellor tell the Prime Minister that her jobs tax was going to hit charities?
Mr. Speaker, she's asked 3 questions about winter fuel with a leaving out. I'll come to that. But she's changed her mind on this. She used to say
you've changed your mind on it as well.
She said there are members of her
you know better than them
who didn't need it. And they all stood in 2017 on a manifesto, a Tory manifesto that committed to getting rid of the universal winter payments for pensioners. So we can see what their real commitment is.
You're the same. Your commitments, pledges, missions, promises.
Oh, I don't want to have to ring your mother.
I'll speak when I like.
Mr. Speaker, we're driving up productivity, prosperity and living standards. That's a pay rise for the 3 million who are the lowest paid.
I can interrupt whenever I like.
A pay rise for those working in the NHS and better than expected wage growth just before Christmas. What unites all three, delivered by Labour, opposed by the Tories.
An equaliser.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know what world he's living in. The economy is shrinking, and they did not think this jobs tax through or who it would impact. Another area affected is the hospice sector. Hospices believe the budget will cost them an extra £30 million. Yesterday, Conservatives voted to exempt social care, nurseries, charities and hospices from their jobs tax.
Yeah, that's a good point. Don't mention 2017. Whatever you do, that didn't happen. Okay. The Democratic Socialist Manifesto did not wipe out the Tory majority. Don't pretend it did, or else I'll call you a racist. Got it? Wink, wink.
In the budget to deal with the problem that they left, and we'll set out the funding arrangements for hospices in the new year. But it's the same old, same old. They want all the benefits. She said to herself she wants all the benefits from the budget. But she
no spoilers if you know what's going on, please. Thank you very much.
In the first place.
Mr. Speaker, I did not hear a commitment there to help hospices, which is a shame. The truth is, this winter, people will be suffering because of his choices. The economy is shrinking, inflation is going up, and jobs are being lost because of his budget. Pensioners won't be able to heat their homes because of his government's decisions. They raise people's hopes but then smash them with broken promises. And now we learn that he is about to give away our hard-won Brexit freedoms.
Mr.
Speaker.
Hard-won Brexit freedoms. Hard-won Brexit freedoms. Oh, whoa. Well, we could go down the rabbit hole with that one. Did anybody else hear a deliver there? Just want to make sure that the scores are straight. Did I miss a deliver? Or is it still 1-1? Let me know, people. the hard fought for Brexit benefits. Oh. If I wasn't laughing, I'd be crying. I'll leave the scores as they are. Let's just crack on.
Mr. Speaker, now we learn he is about to give away our hard-won Brexit freedoms. The truth is, they are punching the British people in the face, literally in the case of one of his MPs, and he will pretend that this is about the past. But we all know these are his choices, bad choices. If he's looking for a New Year's resolution, why doesn't he start with telling the truth?
I'll do it now. £22 billion black hole left by them. Record numbers on the waiting list.
It's not a good time to leave the chamber, is it? Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, £22 billion black hole. Record waiting list with our NHS. They should hang their heads in shame. Immigration completely out of control. Nearly 1 million net migration. She was the cheerleader for all of that. She wants the truth. That's the truth. That's why they're sitting there. Mr. Speaker, whilst they cart from the sidelines, talking the country down, this government is getting on with the job. Record funding for the NHS, money for our trains, buses, and yes, Mr. Speaker,
the only
inverted
commas weapon that they've got to use against the Tories isn't even valid.
Faster than inflation. Planning laws,
and it's all they ever say.
Great British Energy set up. We're only getting started. Next year we'll continue to rebuild, no matter what the blockers opposite say.
Your mum was a blocker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I echo the words of the Prime Minister and thank you and all of our staff in this place alongside our armed forces and our emergency services and wish them a Merry Christmas. Mr. Speaker, March 2025 marks 20 years since the death of the only Member of Parliament to have held all four great offices of state: the Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary, the Chancellor and the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, James Callaghan was a true Portsmouth great and went to the same school as another true Portsmouth great.
Borrowed a load of money off the IMF and then didn't put it into the economy, which is why everybody... God, what are you talking about?
To be added to his former home in Copner, and will he come along to Portsmouth next year to unveil it?
Well, I thank her for
Starmer's still way to the right
Jim
of
Callaghan was a
Callaghan.
giant of the Labour movement and a great public servant. Mr. Speaker, he left school at 17, served in our Royal Navy before becoming the Home Secretary, Foreign Secretary, Chancellor and, of course, finally Prime Minister. And as a proud son of Portsmouth, I'm sure he'd be honoured to be remembered.
I had a feeling 22 billion would be on strong form this week.
Mr. Mayor, I keep hearing, I heard you the other week over here, I'm hearing again that it's not a good time to push a luck today. Right, let us come to Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Red David.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in his praise and best wishes for our armed forces and our emergency services? And can I join others in wishing you happy Christmas, Mr. Speaker, and all the staff of the Commons, and indeed everyone across this House. I'm coming to sing in a minute. Mr. Speaker, I've had the great joy of spending time recently with some amazing young people from the Bath Philharmonia Young Carers Choir. They're a brilliant example of the power of music to make a difference in young people's lives. One member of the choir, Caitlin, has even developed a special new project to spread the joy of music to young people in our schools and communities. So will the Prime Minister meet Caitlin to hear more about her exciting project and work with us and others to support music in our schools and communities?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I welcome his comments, and as he will know, today we're introducing the landmark Children's Wellbeing Bill to enable all children to succeed, including young carers.
Is that so you can change your mind and scrap it in 6 months, Keith?
Over £2.9 billion, which can be used to support pupils with identified needs, and that, of course, includes...
Monopoly money is worth more than your promises.
Now young carers are on the school census, as he knows, that's since 2023. They have greater visibility, and schools will be better able to identify and support them. Mr. Speaker, he talks of singing. There was carols outside our front door on Monday, and...
yeah, James wins through discontent. Callaghan, don't mention it though.
Shamelessly plugging his song. We have strict rules about antisocial behaviour, but in the spirit
you must,
of the season,
well,
I simply
no,
say
Keith, it's anti-socialist behaviour.
Well, happy Christmas.
That's what you're actually doing.
For allowing the Young Carers Choir to sing outside number 10. I hope he and the staff enjoyed it. Our song is called Love Is Enough.
Of course, I forgot they've got the song out. He's got the song out. That's what he's referring to.
Love is not enough. These amazing young people need real action to help them with the challenges they face.
There's another one out. Oh, just pause it. Well, I don't want to pause it too many times for the sake of brevity. But just because he's speaking about this charity song there's another one coming out that apparently the BBC aren't going to be playing, and it's a real like jibe at Starmer called "We're Freezing this winter." Is it? "We're Freezing this Christmas"? Whatever the title of the song is. I've not actually heard it. You'll have to forgive me, but I've heard that the BBC aren't going to be playing it because it's a direct go at the Prime Minister. Unbiased, of course. BBC. It's not state media, and they definitely don't have a bias in favour of certain nation that's currently committing international war crimes either. Back to Davey.
Support the Carers Trust's Young Carers Covenant to make sure across government, across local authorities, we are supporting these young people with all the support they deserve.
We should support these young people, and we continue to work across the sector to ensure all schools identify, support and record data on young carers. And of course, Mr. Speaker, we boosted the carers allowance in the budget, but I agree with him in relation to these young carers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself with the remarks of the Prime Minister in wishing everyone a very happy Christmas this year? For many in my constituency and indeed across the country, particularly those in temporary accommodation, it won't be a happy Christmas. On the Tories' watch, temporary homelessness more than doubled. So what is the government doing to support families and children?
They'll be freezing and they won't have enough money to cover the bills because they collect the lowest pension in Europe.
Right about the appalling inheritance, which included record numbers sleeping rough, almost 160,000 children living in temporary accommodation. Speaker, we're delivering nearly £1 billion into councils to tackle homelessness, including increasing funding in Bolton over the next year. That includes dedicated support with housing, with mental health, and
Could this
with
be a bit of a
employment.
comeback from
But
Postman
we're
Swats?
also committed to tackling the root causes, and that's why we're building 1.5 million new homes and abolishing Section 21 no-fault eviction, something they said they were going to do and repeatedly failed to do.
You've not got the builders, electricians and engineers for it. It's about as worth, it's a worthless promise as much as promising to compensate the WASPI women.
His government rejected those same calls out of hand. Mr. Speaker, is this what the Prime Minister meant when he promised to lead a government of change?
Mr. Speaker, this is a serious issue. Between 2005 and 2007, there were, I think, a 28-month delay in letters to women born in the 1950s about changes to pension age. That was unacceptable, and it was right that the government apologised for that. In 2011, the former Chancellor, George Osborne, then accelerated those changes with very little notice. That equally was unacceptable, and Labour opposed it at the time. It is a serious issue. It's a complex issue. The research, as he knows, shows that 90% of those impacted knew about the changes that were taking place. And I'm afraid to say the taxpayer simply can't afford the tens of billions of pounds in compensation
Rubbish.
when the evidence does show that 90% of those impacted
Rubbish.
did know about it. That's because of the state
Well
of our
then tell
economy.
Ukraine we want all that money back. Tell Netanyahu we want all that money back.
Recent data shows that almost 11,000 Scots have been waiting for hospital treatment for over 2 years after referral. The equivalent number in England is around 113. Would the Prime Minister agree with me that this shows the catastrophic damage the SNP government have done to the Scottish NHS?
Well, he's right when he says the SNP is letting down patients in Scotland. As the Scottish Auditor General says, greater leadership is needed in the Scottish NHS.
How dare you?
Waiting list targets are being missed. Spending on agency staff is skyrocketing. And delays to
He's
patient
getting
discharge are
heckled
hitting record levels.
quite
They seem to be
magnificently though.
proud of that appalling record. We've provided the money, they've got the powers, they've run out of excuses.
Blake Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, since the summer, thousands of commuters using Harlington and Flitwick stations have had to put up with nearly 8% of trains being cancelled.
Looking forward to the SNP getting a question
nearly a third
now.
of trains that do arrive are more than 5 minutes late. Is it a mere coincidence, Mr. Speaker, that such poor performance follows this government's decision to pay off their union backers with no strings attached?
The trains and all travel was in an appalling state under the last government. We're clearing that up and fixing it, and he should be welcoming that.
Ian Byrne. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Parliamentary Ombudsman concluded that an injustice was done to 1950s born women. It ruled that they are owed compensation and asked Parliament intervened to deliver justice. In my constituency of Liverpool, West Derby, I have more than 5,000 women affected. And alongside a great many members in this House, I believe these women are owed compensation for the injustice done to them at the hands of the state. So will the Prime Minister give members the opportunity to vote on whether they believe WASPI women are owed compensation?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've just set out the factual background and the percentage that knew about the change. And the simple...
It wasn't factual. It wasn't factual. Come on, Keith.
I can't bear the burden of tens of billions of pounds in compensation. Well, they're chuntering away. In 14 years, they accelerated the changes and not once spoke about compensation.
Like you did, and you lied about what you'd do when you got in government.
Thousands across Devon, Cornwall and beyond who are living with postural tachycardia syndrome and have been unable to access adequate treatment since the retirement of the only consultant available to work with them in July. What action can the Prime Minister take to help me secure the treatment that my constituents need?
And another one. Thanks for that, Wolfpet. The Scottish NHS is the best performing in the UK. Quite right.
Thank you for raising this important issue on behalf of her constituents. It does underline the critical importance of the NHS workforce plan that we will deliver next summer to ensure that the export workforce is in place to get the NHS back on its feet. I am proud that we're investing an additional £22.6 billion to fix our NHS, and I will, of course, make sure she gets a meeting with the relevant minister to deal with the issues of concern.
Husband swats, fighting back. 3-3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and a very Merry Christmas. May I associate myself with the comments of the Prime Minister and my gratitude to all of those that serve our communities over Christmas. I'd like to give special credit to foster carers in Nuneaton and across the UK for the incredibly important role that they play. We know that their care transforms lives, but the foster carers in Nuneaton tell me that there simply isn't the support that there used to be, and over 17% of children are waiting over 4 years for care. Recently, I was made aware of one child who had had 9 home placements before the end of Key Stage 1. Can the Prime Minister ensure that there will be a robust system to provide consistent and swift care when needed?
Well, I'm grateful to her for raising this issue because, Mr. Speaker, every single child deserves the best start in life, and there are far too many shocking cases of children being let down. The Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill is being introduced today, and that does put children's interests at the heart of government policy, and I hope it will be supported across the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Labour promised not to raise taxes on working people, but farmers are some of the hardest working people that I know. Peter Douglas from Jedburgh has looked at the details of this policy, and he says Labour's inheritance tax increase will prevent him passing on his family farm to his son and daughter. They say Labour have betrayed them. They can't trust the Prime Minister to keep his words. They've got a point, haven't they?
If he would kindly pass the details of the individual case he's raised to my team, we will...
Tell them to get shafted in person. This is what you'll do, probably.
£5 billion into farming over the next 2 years in the budget. Just 2 weeks ago, £350 million was put in to support farmers. That contrasts with the £300 million underspend of the last government on farming. And in a typical case, the threshold is £3 million, which means that the vast majority of farmers will be unaffected. But I'll look into the individual case that he's raised with me.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently spoke to a man in Worksop whose son's arm was badly broken when he was knocked off his bicycle by an off-road biker speeding on the pavement. Dressed in black, no number plate, totally unidentifiable. The young boy no longer goes out to play. His experience isn't unique. What action is being taken to smash the bikes and put police back on our streets?
Well, I'm glad she's raised this because off-road bikes were a complete nuisance under the last government, got completely out of control.
Smash the bikes now, is it? Things you don't like, they smash this.
On off-road bikes, strengthening police.
This is obviously a terrible case. What's happened to this? That's appalling.
Out of control under the last government. We will also deliver 13,000 more neighbourhood police to ensure that we keep control of our streets, something that was lost under the last government.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Husband Swat takes the lead.
Last week, the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead announced plans to hike council tax by an unprecedented 25%. This would require the government's permission. Does he agree with me that this outrageous request should be rejected, that the borough might be a candidate for accelerated local government reorganisation, and my constituents should not be footing the bill for the persistent, weak financial control and political failure locally?
Yeah. Well, thank him for raising this issue on behalf of his constituents. We are, as he knows, committed to fixing the foundations of local government and keeping taxes as low as possible for working people. The budget announced real terms increase for local government with over £4 billion of added funding. And so we will put that support in place, and he's right to raise this issue.
Speaker Priestley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have in our NHS many brilliant emigre and refugee surgeons from the greatly troubled Middle East. And I've been privileged to work alongside some of them, Iran, Iraq, and now, as we think, especially of Syria.
Smile. I'm not laughing.
What practical measures can the UK take to help ensure that Syria now has the best chance of becoming an open society and the second functional democracy in the region?
Well, I thank him for drawing attention to the people of Syria.
None, because if I think I understand the question correctly, it's who are we going to undemocratically install to run the country in what can only be described as a coup.
Of extra support to vulnerable Syrians, and I've spoken to G7 leaders to work towards a Syrian government that respects international law, universal human rights, and protects all citizens across all sectors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Dave Dugan.
Mr. Speaker, before the election, this Prime Minister said he would lower energy bills by £300. Since he took office, they've gone up by £149. He said he would protect the winter fuel payment, but now he's in power, he stripped it off our pensioners. And he said he lined up for many photos with WASPI women, saying he'd have their backs, and he's just betrayed them in the most scandalous way possible. This is now the defining characteristic of this one-trick phony Prime Minister, who says one thing and does another. In Scotland, the SNP are 16 points ahead in the polls.
Energy bills as
Does he
and
understand?
in Scotland, they have a surplus of energy, but they pay the highest rate
especially
in
those
Europe
of us in
as well.
Scotland, treat him with such contempt.
Well said, that man.
They used to ask those questions. They used to ask those questions from this sort of area with very many MPs not so long ago. That all changed in July.
Clean energy, green energy, should lower bills. Instead, they're going up. Make it make sense, Keith.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry I couldn't hear you over the hubbub. First of all, can I wish you a very Merry Christmas, and all colleagues across the House a very Merry Christmas, and especially the House staff. And also, I associate myself with the remarks thanking emergency services and our armed forces for their service. Mr. Speaker, Christmas is a time for peace and goodwill. Given there are more conflicts now than at any time since World War II, and that all wars end with a peace, what is the Prime Minister's resolution to work with others for a more peaceful world in 2025?
Well, Mr. Speaker, can I thank her for her question, and I'm sure
Yeah,
colleagues
tell her about
across
the F-35
House
parts, Keith.
support the values
Tell her about £3 billion
of the
a year
Parliamentarians for Peace, which I know
for as long as this
she
war
is
goes on being
involved
sent
with,
to Ukraine.
and their work to support human rights across the
Denying
globe.
that there's a genocide
and that is the
happening in
sentiment I
Gaza.
think we take
Tell her
into
about
this
that.
festive period. Thank you.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it was good to hear that the Prime Minister visited British soldiers in Estonia yesterday before they have to spend Christmas away from their families. We would all like to see a lasting peace emerge for Ukraine in the new year. But Putin may take any deal brokered by Trump as a break in which to re-equip and rearm. What will his government do to deter Russia from restarting its imperial war of aggression following any peace deal?
Well, can I congratulate him on his appointment to the Intelligence and Security Committee?
There's a lot of presumption in that question there, that Donald Trump's going to sweep in and broker a peace deal. He deluded, man.
They're right on the front line with a very clear sense of purpose as part of our NATO contingent, and we thank them. He's right that we must continue to support Ukraine, and that was the subject of our discussions in Estonia yesterday. Make sure Ukraine is put in the strongest possible position, whether negotiations or not, and be absolutely clear that this conflict could be ended straight away if the aggressor, Russia, backed off.
Mother of the House, Diana.
What? The WASPI women fought one of the most sustained and passionate campaigns for justice that I can remember, year in, year out. We did promise them that we would give them justice. I understand the issue about the cost, but does the Prime Minister really understand how let down WASPI women feel today?
I do understand the concern, of course I do. I set out the history, Mr. Speaker, but the research
his own MPs, this Diane Abbott is still a Labour MP.
About the change, and in those circumstances, the taxpayer simply can't afford the burden of tens of billions of pounds of compensation. But I do understand the concerns.
Ridiculous. Insultingly ridiculous.
I know the Prime Minister is aware of the case of my constituent, Zara Sharif, who was brutally tortured and appallingly murdered by her father and her stepmother. I want Zara's legacy to be one where she's the last vulnerable child to be killed by people that should have looked after her. Will the Prime Minister ensure that an independent inquest and review is taken into Zara's death and it's held immediately in the new year so we can learn why public authorities failed, so we can ensure that it never happens again?
He rightly raises this absolutely harrowing case, and it is important that all the lessons are learned. There is an independent process going on, but we must be clear about overhauling children's social care to keep young people safe and looking again about the framework for homeschooling, amongst other things. So we need to learn those lessons. We are taking steps. There is a process going on at the moment, and I'll update the House in due course.
Alan Strickland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Prime Minister for the leadership he has shown in securing the £500 million.
You're watching the planted question of the week on Brews at 10. My left eye.
Left in the lurch by the party opposite for years. And does he agree? Will he agree with me that what we also need is a long-term plan for our proud high-tech rail manufacturing to drag it out of the mire it was left in by the Tories?
Thank you for that question. They really shouldn't groan. I went up to the Hitachi factory earlier this year before the election. The workforce were extremely anxious about the situation because they feared that there would be a gap between contracts. This is a gap that might mean people aren't going to get laid off, and he's chuntering from a sitting position, unable to understand the impact on working people.
Sedentary position.
Extremely anxious about the situation when I saw them, because they knew if their colleagues were laid off, then that would be bad for their colleagues in their community, and it would mean that they might go and get other jobs and not be able to come back if there was a new contract. I said then that I would do everything I could to ensure that we filled that gap, and I'm very pleased that just the other week we were able to say that there's a contract, and I went back up there to speak to the same workforce, and I can say they were very pleased that they don't now have those anxieties. They should be ashamed of their chuntering.
Final question, Dr. Luke Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As it's Christmas, will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating Chris Middleton, who wrote a charity song to support Age UK, which has already raised £10,000? What's even better is it's likely to beat the leader of the Lib Dems and his single to #1 this year, proving yet again that the Lib Dems can't win. Something I hope we can both agree on.
I'm not going to adjudicate between the contending singles for the top of the charts, but I will end, Mr. Speaker, this is the last question, I think, by just repeating a happy Christmas and a peaceful New Year to everyone across the House.
Right, we'll let the front benches change
yourself, man. Right, that's it. It was a narrow victory there. Postman Twat just about scraped through with a particularly late comeback, and that was indeed the final PMQs of the year. So, yeah, there was a lot of bad House of Commons humour there. So what did we have? We obviously had planted questions. We had the pantomime-esque "You're worse than we were," "You're a liar," "No, you're a liar," which is now a weekly thing between Starmer and Badenoch. I'll just get the background music sorted. One moment. So it was quite high scoring, as I thought in the end. 4-3. Blackhole did take quite a serious lead there. Thought it could have been making a bit of a reprieve after some recent draws and defeats. Yeah, good point there, Mobius. It's all well and good, they're having the seasonal festive jokes. But there is, of course, a collective punishment going on in Bethlehem itself. Right, I've got some other bits and pieces to get through on the stream. That's not all. Stay put, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Let me know what you thought about that session, that PMQs. You sort of heard my thoughts about it in real time there, so I won't dwell too much on my overall opinion. But if you do think, speaking of the House of Commons, that there will be a parliamentary vote on WASPI compensation, vote yes in the poll, which is in the chat. If you don't, then obviously vote no. So I'll be filling you in on the results of the poll at the end of the stream. For now though, just a couple of more things to get into. You saw Farage lurking behind the SNP there as they asked a question in the Commons. He has, of course, as I mentioned before, been across to America, cap in hand, to Elon Musk, who now wants to take a slice of British politics. Fortunately, someone a little more level-headed, shall we say, appeared on Newsnight recently and gave his 2 cents about that, so Here is a man who, as always, here on My Left Eye, needs no introduction.
Nigel Farage met Elon Musk at Donald Trump's Florida residence yesterday. It's been reported that Elon Musk may want to donate potentially up to $100 million to Reform. What would you think if that happened?
I'm shocked, absolutely shocked. The idea that somebody such as Musk, with those amount of money, would pour it into British politics in order to get a populist like Farage elected. We need to clean up our act on political party funding, just as the USA needs to clean it up even more. It has to be limited and it has to be totally transparent. Musk pouring those sums of money into our politics over the next 4 years is, to me, quite frightening.
Why?
Wealthy people owning politics is very, very dangerous, because
But that's
at the
not
end,
new to this country, is it?
isn't it time to end it? That's it.
So should Labour tighten up the rules on donations to British
Yes.
political parties?
Yes, it should.
Including trade union donations?
Well, trade unions are not commercial operations like Elon Musk.
Never missing a chance to have a dig at the trade unions, of course. The BBC, Corbyn's about to give an excellent explanation as to why it's comparing apples with oranges there, really.
And don't have a selfish interest of Elon Musk. A trade union represents its members. It's a democratic organisation.
Yeah, it's not a business. It's not run for a profit. Its members, they pay the dues, and then that goes into supporting each of the members in a united fashion. Hence, it's called a union. And you know, that's a good expression from Corbyn, where I've paused it in that video though. Surely they know the difference, but of course they'll pretend that they don't.
That's a completely different thing.
Right.
And the political fund has to be voted on by the members of the union, whether to have one or not.
Well said there, JC. Yeah, let's keep this top 1% influence out of politics. Especially keep anyone like Elon Musk a mile away from it if we can. Moving on swiftly, I wanted to throw this your way as well. It's some representatives, a slightly different topic here. Speaking of unions, actually, it is relevant. But some representatives from Amazon were up in a committee and they got quite a grilling and failed to answer a simple question. Obviously, this being a committee, they can't get away with things as MPs can in the House of Commons in terms of not directly answering questions. So it was put to them why there are so many strikes happening, specifically in the Coventry depot, which has been in the news quite a few times recently. I personally have been out and campaigned and protested against Amazon previously in solidarity with workers in Coventry. We've done so up here in Manchester as well. But if they're so happy, then why are they on strike? Perfectly reasonable question. There are a couple of reps. They're from the company, which is making record profits, of course. So let's take a look at that. And then after that, speaking of actions and protests that I've been involved with, I do have a bit of an update with some legal matters where that's concerned as well. Long-term viewers will know, of course, that I am a campaigner and activist in political and environmental realms. So that'll, yeah, I'll get into that after this one, but this is stultifying example of trying to play dumb and trying to deflect from the question.
If Amazon's such a great place to work, as you've said, that's what you hear time and time again from your team, why have your team in Coventry gone on strike so much?
I think it's important to note that we absolutely support their right to do that.
That hasn't answered the. Excuse me. I've obviously we've sat here for quite a while now. I feel like I might need to get lessons from you both at some point in how to not answer the question that was asked directly. If you're that good an employer that you've explained to us so far, why have your workers in Coventry gone on strike so much?
I think they're executing their rights as we absolutely would protect their ability to do. I've shared some data around that building about how employees are telling us it's a great place to work. What I would love to do is invite you, sir, to come and see the building yourself.
I really apologise for interrupting you. My question was why. You haven't answered why. You've told me that, again, it's a great place to work and you've got all this data.
He's doing very well on the committee. Yes, thanks for Andy. Yeah, I should have missed an easy one there, didn't I? Committee.
Why?
I think that's a good moment for me to, again, extend the invitation.
But it's a good moment for you to not... No, sorry, I'm really sorry. I'm going to really push this point.
Okay.
It's a great opportunity for you to not answer my question. If you are such a great place to work, and I'd like to congratulate you, you said you won an award recently on being a great place to work. If you are that great a place to work, why have your workers in Coventry gone on strike so much?
Our employees have the right to join a trade union or not to join a trade union, and we totally respect that.
I'm pulling teeth at this point. Neither of you answered that question so far. I'll ask it once more.
Yeah.
I'll ask it once more and then I'll give up because I don't think I'm going to get an answer. Why have they gone on strike so much? What is the reason behind it? You talk to workers every day, you've told us, and that's what your teams do. So when you ask them, why are you going on strike? What's their answer back to you? Why are they striking?
They were demonstrating their right to support the trade union that they were a member of. Okay. Simply put.
It's because they don't even have time to take a piss and because they get paid absolutely poor wages and they're overworked and they're surveyed like they're surrounded by stalkers, essentially, if you work for that company.
Yes, that's right. What was the legal reason?
There are multiple scenarios over the recognition attempts that the GMB has made.
We're not talking about recognition. We're talking about the 37 days of industrial action at BHX4 in Coventry. Paperwork
they
needs
need the
to
basics of industrial action explaining to him at this point.
Action. What was the reason given for strike action on those 37 days in answer to my colleague's question?
Mr. Morgan? Please repeat the question.
In order to take industrial action, a union needs to win a ballot. In order to have a legal ballot, they need to supply to the employer some paperwork that lists the reason, and it needs to be a legal reason. Supporting their union is not a legal reason. It needs to be a legal reason as to why they wish to take strike action for that ballot to go ahead and be lawful and not be challenged in the courts. What was the legal reason on the paperwork supplied to you why you...
Exactly. It has to be a contravention of a law, or perhaps it's not something that was in their contract that they signed when they started working for the company. This kind of thing. It has to be legally ratified in the run-up to strike action itself via ballots and so on and so forth. There's an administrative process, so you don't just stick up a sign on the notice board that says, you know, strike on Saturday, show up, bring a flask and a banner, that kind of thing. There's a process, and they don't seem to understand the very fundamentals of that. Within that process, it will say which laws or agreements were broken, and these are things that Amazon don't want you to know that they're happy to break on a regular basis. It's been said by people who've worked within the industry, and we're not just talking about low-level staff, we're talking about former medium management level staff and above, have said that they've cracked how to get a product from A to B very quickly, but what they haven't figured out yet is how they do that without physically and mentally hurting people. And that is, again, from internal sources, whistleblowing.
Workers at Coventry BHX4 went on strike.
That's one I would be willing to write back on. I don't have the information top of mind, or I can't recall it. We have been, over the series of 2 years, working with the GMB through this process. So we have responded back and forth for several claims, several allegations, I would say, that simply we don't recognize. So please let me come back on that one.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, you don't know why the people went on strike?
I think just to reinforce Jennifer's point that we'll write back on that. I don't have that detailed point.
Okay.
I would imagine, you know, given that there would have been hundreds of people there and they would have had banners explaining what they were protesting about, and it would have been yelled through loudhailers, megaphones, bullhorns, whatever you'd like to describe them as. Megaphone's my personal favourite, of course. But they would have been very vocal about it, is the point that I'm getting at there. And you appear to be completely, or you're pretending at least, that you're completely in the dark about such matters. Well, I know, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, they're them's good people of the Brew crew. I know the reasons because I was there as we had protests in Solidarity up here in Manchester at the same time. And it's those issues that I just outlined as well. And they also happen in conjunction with environmental protests as well, because of the huge amount of environmental damage that Amazon do, as well as the way that the staff are treated. And there's plenty of whistleblowing documentaries out there if you do want to check them out, regarding breaks, time off work, attempts to unionise being railroaded and sabotaged on the, completely contrary to the statements that you just heard from these 2 or 3 absolute muppets trying to support Jeff Bezos' empire there. So just wanted to throw that one your way. What do you think about that, people? Let me know in the chat. Just one more clip before we bring things to a close, but please do stick around. I'm going to be redirecting, so I will dive in and have a search for who's currently live before we bring things to a close. Sorry to be rushing through things as we get towards the end of the stream tonight. Just can't be on too late is all. But this is the latest example of Piers Morgan getting shown up on his own show, the Piers Morgan Uncensored show. And clip from, a representative, a professor, in fact, who's been on before, and for some reason, don't know, perhaps he's some sort of masochist or something, Piers Morgan's invited him on again. Syed Mohammed Mirandi, who's really good at putting his point across, and he does so in quite a comedic fashion this way, with regards to what's happening between Iran and Israel at the moment, and of course the United States and the UK are also involved in this. But the comebacks here definitely worth commending. So this is Syed Mirandi.
Any threat. Iran has a high degree of legitimacy, and I would invite you to come to Iran. Why didn't you just come to Iran, and then maybe you'll find out that we're not Mordor and you don't live in the Shire, and that and I promise you we won't take you hostage.
Yeah, you know what? With all due respect to your promises about that kind of thing, I don't think I'll take the chance. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, but
I appreciate the invitation. I'm sure you would be very hospitable. Some of your friends, not so much.
Well, I promise you that no one is going to pay your ransom, and I bet your producers would probably demand something to take you back. But in any case, the offer still stands.
Brilliant. The producers of the show would have to offer something to take him back. That's how unwanted he is. Oh, really well put. He knows he's got him there as well. You can tell by the look on his face. Great stuff. Great stuff. But that happens every time he goes on Like I said, I don't know why he seems to think it's one of those situations where, you know, you might have had a disagreement with someone and then you think about something good to say afterwards, so he invites him back on and then it just gets even worse. Right, there doesn't appear to be anybody who's on live at the moment, so I'll go to the results of this evening's poll. Quite a decisive vote. 68 to 31 in favour of no, I think. So there won't be a parliamentary vote on WASPI compensation. Given this Starmer government, its disrespect for democracy, that wouldn't entirely surprise me either, good people. So thanks a lot for all of your votes in the poll. We do still have to campaign for this as best as we can. This isn't an issue that Keir Starmer should consider as being dealt with now. Try and sweep this under the carpet. There are still millions of disenfranchised pensioners out there, so do everything you can to support the WASPI women, whatever the likelihood of it coming to a parliamentary vote. Thanks again for your votes. Also, just quickly before I give a closing shout out to the members, I did say I'd fill you in with some news about yours truly, your host here on the Brews at 10 on My Left Eye. So yeah, about this action, I've been waiting for some time, having been re-bailed on at least a couple of occasions, having been arrested earlier in the year at a protest. I won't say which one specifically, but I'm very pleased to tell you all, people, that charges have been dropped and there's going to be no further action in that case. So everybody who was arrested there as well also had the same decision, which has been fantastic to hear, and I just found that out yesterday evening. So there you go, that's the latest. I fought the law and I won. So that's all I'll say detail wise. I don't say too much about myself personally here on the channel outside of politics and stuff. So thank you, members. Thank you to everybody who's listening live or listening back on a replay. Before you go, do make sure you've hit that thumbs up button though, and share us across your social media. Tell them all what a great time you had here on PMQ's Brews at 10 on My Left Eye. And, thank you, everybody. Yeah, I really am chuffed with that news. That's been great. And you're all wonderful people as well for helping support the channel here on My Left Eye. Everybody whose names you can see here. Don't forget, if you're not a member already, please do consider joining for just 99p. Great perks for you to enjoy. So hit all the relevant buttons where that's concerned. One final reminder just to check out the latest content as well. A bit more about the WASPI women and stuff like that. If you've seen it, why not give it another watch and give us a boost on the old algorithm. I'll be seeing you later in the week. So have a good night, everybody. Take care of yourselves. My Left Eye, I'll be seeing you soon.